Welcome to the apex of sports ownership, the Apex Athletic Collective.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 42 of Instigate Success, Building an ABA Franchise. I am your host, Jake Schoen. Thank you for joining us again tonight here every Friday night at 9 p.m. We'll continue to do this podcast, even though we are in full off-season mode at this point, but we'll continue to do it every Friday night. You can join us here live on the Patreon. Thank you to all of our subscribers here on Patreon. And if you're catching this in the future over on our YouTube, be sure to check out our Patreon. And then you can get all this stuff live, as well as our games live once we go back into the season. And we'll have a lot of important updates during the off season, as well as votes in the off season for the Hoosier State Instigators. But we'll jump into that. So a little bit of a recap. The season wrapped up was it not last weekend? It was 2 weekends ago at this point. Yeah, 2 weekends ago. April 19th through the 21st, that weekend was the championship weekend, as well as the All-Star weekend for the ABA 2023-2024 season. We'll pull that back up, just recap that a little bit in case you happen to miss that, but we had the final four teams there. Again, this graphic must have been made by the Lions because they still had one of their players on there. But the ABA is kind of notorious for taking posts from other teams and kind of just rebranding them or using them as their own or reposting. So it must have been one of those situations. But the final four teams at the bottom, the Silicon Valley Panthers representing the West region, the Chicago Fury representing the Central region, the region in which the Instigators are a part of, the Binghamton Bulldogs representing the East, and the Mississippi Silverbacks in the South. Technically, they would be the home team going off of the geographical location. And all of this was held at Spring Hill College in Mobile, Alabama. The first four or the final four games, so the semifinals, were held on Friday night of that weekend, and they were between the two teams closest to each other there, the Silicon Valley Panthers and the Chicago Fury, as well as the Bulldogs and the Silverback. The first game, I believe, was the Fury and the Panthers, and both of these games wound up being very, very close games. If you happen to watch both of them, I think they came down to the final minute. The Fury were able to pull off a victory on a last-second shot, and they propelled themselves into the championship game. The second game of the night on Friday, April 19th, was the Bulldogs and Silverbacks. That game was also very close. And again, a one-score game. The Silverbacks wound up with the victory. All led up to a championship matchup between the Fury and the Silverbacks. And that game, it wound up going into overtime. If you happen to catch that, and again, if you haven't seen that game, it is available on YouTube. You can look it up on YouTube, and I highly recommend catching that game, or at least the end of the game. But that game went into overtime, very even matchups across the board for the whole championship weekend. You could tell all four of those teams really wanted to secure the victory and be able to hoist a trophy at the end. But that final game, the championship game between the Fury and the Silverbacks, was pretty crazy. Lots of back and forth. And in the final minutes, again, they were tied at the end of regulation, went into overtime. And again, we had that one overtime game against the Louisville Pros this season. It was our first experience with overtime. We kind of learned a little bit about the ABA overtime rules. I think we put out a little minute or two clip throughout the season at some point as well, describing the rules, and that was one of the rules we went over. But the first overtime period is a 3-minute overtime, and at the end, it's basically like your regular overtime. whoever's ahead wins. If it's tied, it continues. And what happened at the end of the first overtime period between the Chicago Fury and the Silverbacks in the championship, they actually wound up being tied again, and they went into another overtime period. However, the ABA does things a little bit different once it hits that second overtime period. Instead of continuing to be on the traditional overtime setup that most other basketball leagues, at least here in the U.S., wind up using. There's a few exceptions, and I'll point them out. But the like the NBA and the NCAA will just continue going into these overtime periods. And again, if it's tied, they'll continue to another overtime period. And if not, and then the team with the higher score winds up winning. But you keep going until one team's on top at the end of the period. But there is also another type of overtime. This is what the ABA utilizes once it hits that second overtime. It's the ELOM ending. That's also popular in the TBT tournament. If you catch that, that's another form of basketball. And I think that is coming up sometime here. I'll have to check when that is, but I know there's always a Boeheim's Army or Syracuse related team. Being a Syracuse grad, that's always the team I gravitate towards. But that's a pretty fun tournament to watch. $1 million prize at the end of it. But the Elam ending is different than your traditional overtime period. So what happens is basically it's like the scores reset, or it's a whole new period where it's the first team to score a specific set amount of points. For the ABA championship game and any other ABA game, that's 10 points. So it's going to be the first team to 10 points winds up winning the game. That way, it makes it so that the period doesn't end with a tie, and it's a pretty smart idea, especially in games like this, with the championship game or any kind of playoff game. If you have the overtime, it could just keep going and going, and this makes it so that both sides know exactly what they're going for. Whoever hits that 10-point mark is the team that winds up winning. And I think you have to win by 2 points. Again, I might have to double check that to see, but I think you have to win by 2 points again, and then it's the first to 10 points. But that is what wound up happening, and it was again very, very close. And the Fury and the Silverbacks traded buckets back and forth. They both hit a couple of 3-point shots in the overtime periods, and it came down to some free throws at the end. And when it was all said and done, the Chicago Fury were able to walk away with the championship. Again, I stole this from their Instagram page, but it's got their players listed there, the 5 starters, as well as the owner and the head coach for the Chicago Fury, the 2023-2024 ABA champions, keeping the title in the Central region. Again, congratulations to the Fury. Well-deserved victory in that championship game, and all throughout the tournaments and championship weekend. They took down the Lions back in the Central region playoffs here in Indiana. And the Lions were the defending co-champions from the previous season. So they definitely had their work cut out for them. Lots of great teams throughout the path. But when it's all said and done, the Fury are the only team that has the rights to the championship going into next season. But again, congratulations to them. Huge accomplishment. And we're definitely hoping to be in the Final Four next season. Obviously, we'd love that championship as well. But we still did have one player make the trip down to Mobile, Alabama. And that was our very first All-Star, AB, the 7-footer himself, Alex Brown. There's him wearing his All-Star jersey, and there's the sign they had outside for the All-Star weekend at Spring Hill College in Mobile, Alabama. Not only did AB participate in the All-Star game, he was a starter. He was a starting center for the team in white. And he also decided to participate in the 3-point contest and the slam dunk contest. That gives him the rights to say he was the first Hoosier State instigator to participate in all of the all-star activities for the ABA. So the 3-point contest, the slam dunk contest, and the all-star game. He will always be in the record books for that. So congratulations to him. Well deserved on the season. He has had to be an all-star, leading the league in blocks. I know we stream those live on Facebook. I was behind the camera for that. I was able to make that trip down as well. I was the only owner representative for the team at the championship and all-star weekend. And it was a great experience. You know, like I said, I'd love to have not only myself down there next time, but I'd love to have all the other owners as well as all of our players in the Final Four, hopefully next season. And you know whether or not that's in Mobile, Alabama, I do not really know. But you know wherever it is, I would love to have that happen. And then hopefully we could get a couple of guys into that All-Star game and get some more guys into these skills challenges. But it was a fun event. If you didn't catch it, like I said, it's over on our Facebook page. The 3-point contest, I think AB wound up finishing with 6 points. But, you know, he might not be necessarily known for his 3-point shooting, but he still did knock down some shots, not only in the 3-point contest, but throughout the season as well. And the slam dunk contest, you know, if you watched him throughout the season, he definitely was capable of knocking down some pretty nice dunks. I think we should the slam dunk contest last time here, but we'll jump over. I think I have it set up for this so we can catch both of these actually on here. So we'll jump over to that. I'll share my screen here. We'll do the 3-point contest first, and then we'll jump over to the slam dunk contest. If you haven't caught these already, just so you can see the instigators in action with AB at the All-Star festivities. And again, these are both pretty short videos anyways, so they won't take up a bunch of time here. But I'll get that to share the screen. So that was our All Star Weekend activities for AB. Um, for the 3-point contest and the slam dunk contest. And he also, again, participated in the All Star game as a starter. He definitely got the ball a little bit more in the second half, though, if you do wind up rewatching the game. First half, they didn't pass on the ball quite as much as they maybe should have, but then they started feeding him in the third and fourth quarter. Again, my unofficial stats, I think he had 11 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, steal and a block, give or take somewhere on there. But right around that was the unofficial stats for what I had on the weekend in the All Star game for AB. But again, congrats to him. That's a huge accomplishment, and it's an honor for us to have that um, as the owners for the Instigators to not only have. Been able to go down to All Star Weekend and the championship weekend, but to have a player down there in the history book as our first All Star 3-point contest and slam dunk contest participants. Um, but yeah, that announcer, he was pretty decent, for the 3-point contest. The only thing I will say is his only catch line, it seemed like, was he just say money, every time they shot, and it didn't necessarily mean it was a money ball. I kind of, it was kind of just like every time they shot, if he thought it was going to go in, or if he was hoping to get them on a streak, he kind of just said that for every shot. But it worked, I guess, for the money balls, at least for AB. Again, he finished with 6 points in that. And I think all the shots he wound up hitting were those money balls. So maybe there was a little bit of luck with that announcer as well. But again, that was a couple weekends ago, April 19th through 21st. And that wrapped up the ABA season. Once that finished up, we entered the off season the last week. And as well as everyone else in the ABA. And we had a vote over on our Patreon. If you didn't have a chance, the vote was through the end of the month. For player evaluations, we had been talking about that for the past few weeks here on the podcast. And anybody that's a fan voter or higher on our Patreon subscription levels, they have an opportunity, or had an opportunity through the end of April, to submit their player evaluations. Again, here at the AAC, the Apex Athletic Collective, our goal is not to just be an owner or of a sports franchise with the Hoosier State Instigators. We have, a goal of hopefully accomplishing that with multiple sports, but that's probably sometime down the future. The Hoosier State Instigators are our first organization that we have under the AAC umbrella. But the whole idea behind the AAC is to give fans some more kind of skin in the game when it comes to ownership experiences. So when it comes down to roster management, that's actually something we are opening the doors to our fan voters. And we had votes for the fans throughout the offseason leading into our first season, the inaugural season of the Hoosier State Instigators. Everything from the logo, which is pretty awesome. I like it a lot. I got the tattoo of it. But from the logo to our jerseys, and I know I've seen a little bit of a discussion in our Discord over discussing if there could be another jersey. I'm definitely open to that. Having an alternate jersey as well as our two main jerseys. Um, I think I think we probably would want to keep the same, at least main jerseys, or maybe tweak them a little bit for as our jerseys for the next season. I just think, I mean that might be an option. We'll go into the votes and stuff and see what people think. But in my opinion, I think it would be kind of best, at least for the second season, to have a little bit of continuity for the jerseys. Again, I'm not opposed to like a little bit of a tweak, or having that third option as an alternate jersey. I think that's a pretty cool idea, and maybe we could even do a vote at some point to see what would be the best option for that alternate jersey. As far as our main jerseys go, though, I think we'd want to keep it probably similar, if not the same. Again, just to give some kind of continuity, get us a little bit more recognized within the league for the ABA. So, not only for the surrounding area in Indiana, but to get other teams within the ABA kind of familiar with our organization too, and kind of build our base. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that at some point in the off season too. Again, that's nothing set in stone with that at this point, but I just thought I'd bring that up. But yeah, player evaluations, they were due at the end of the month. You had the option to rate our players that were on the roster for the final regular season game. And again, there was like 5 options, ranging from like absolutely must sign this, re-sign this player, to like I'd like to re-sign this player, to indifferent, that I think like prefer to look elsewhere, and then like don't want the player back. I think we're give something like that was around what the 5 options were, and then there was a couple other questions involved with the players, and then there was also the other side with the coaching. Again, we're still looking for the coach for next season, and we'll jump into that a little bit more. But I think I got some slides here. We made some announcements as far as looking into next season. There were a couple announcements this week, and if you didn't catch them already, the first one we made was the first tryout is going to be on May 18th. That is not too far away. And what is that? Yeah, about 2 weeks from today. That's on a Saturday, May 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So a little bit over 2 weeks. If you or anybody else is interested in signing up for tryouts, definitely go ahead and get yourself signed up. You will get a discount if you sign up in advance. And that discounted fee is $60 for the tryout. If you show up at the door, it's going to be 75. So if you're planning on going to the tryout or even thinking about it, I'd recommend you go ahead and sign yourself up ahead of time. You get that $15 discount. And if it's something you're thinking about, go ahead and give it a shot. You know, it's an opportunity to be on a professional basketball team, and I think we do have plans of live streaming it. I know we live streamed our tryouts last year, probably something similar to that, where we would have it here on Patreon. Um, and it may not be over on our YouTube, just because uh, that also gives a little bit of a scouting advantage away as well. But and it also opens the doors up to our loyal fans here on the Patreon to have a little bit more of an insider access compared to the general population. So I think we'll wind up doing that. Because all of our supporters here on Patreon definitely deserve a little bit of a boost as far as going into the off season. Being that we don't have the live game streams going, I think that would be a great thing to have. Assuming we can get all of our technology squared away. I think that's what we're going to try to do. Again, that's like a little over 2 weeks out. May 18th, 1 p.m. And we're doing this in partnership with the IBL. Again, if you remember last season, we had some partnership with the IBL as well. As our first scrimmage game was against the IBL team, the Indiana Shuckers. That's actually where we got Lawan Swish Whitney. He kind of lit us up in that exhibition game, and he wound up joining the Instigators shortly after, I think, in the second or third game of our inaugural season. But we're playing over at the Crossroads Community Church for the tryouts in Bedford, Indiana. That's the same venue we had that scrimmage in. I think we did have a tryout there as well last year, and that was also the venue that we had our first play-in game against the Indiana Legends. That game we wound up winning, leading to our second play-in game, playoff game. That one did not turn out in our favor, but that was over at our home venue, which was the Clinton CRC. Um, but because of a scheduling conflict between the Clinton CRC and the time we needed to play our first playing game, that was the reason that we went with the Crossroads Community Church, and it's a very nice venue. If you remember from the cameras, I think the easiest way to differentiate that one between some of the other venues we had the opportunity to play at this past season is it's got kind of like a double decker kind of thing. The court, and then up above the court, there's like a kind of like a track kind of set up above it, which was nice for an additional viewing area. But yeah, so this is in conjunction with the IBL. Um, and they announced, I think we mentioned this in the past year as well, but the IBL also announced that they're looking to expand into the ABA for the upcoming season. At this point, I think their announcement was that the Shuckers are planning on joining the ABA as an exhibition team. So not quite the same type of team as the Instigators or the Lions or one of the other teams that we've played against this season. The IBL is looking to join more or less as kind of like a fill-in team, whether that's because teams have gaps in their schedule or there's last-minute cancellations, that type of thing. But they are looking into the possibility of potentially joining at the same level as the other teams in the ABA, but that is going to be dependent upon sponsorship. There is a small fee to join uh, to be like officially recognized as a team. And I think they are looking for some sponsorship before they would join at that level. But either way, it's going to be a fun tryout. Again, definitely get your sign ups um, in ahead of time if you or anybody you know is interested. Please send them this information. We have a couple of posts up on our social media. I know if you go over on our Facebook, I think there should be, yeah, there's a direct link over on that. You can click on that link, and that should just get you to the page for the tryouts. And then you click and you buy your ticket for that event, and then you'll fill out your information to be part of the first tryout for next season. But yeah, so if you or anybody you know, again, spread the word. We got a couple of weeks, so still some time to get some people interested that are interested in becoming professional basketball players to sign up and show out for the Hoosier State Instigators. And I think, fingers crossed, we'll have a better player turnout for this season when it comes to the tryouts. I know if you followed us since the beginning, that was one of the things we kind of struggled with in our inaugural season was um, gathering enough interest from players. Being a new team that really didn't have anything on tape to kind of prove not only to ourselves but to the league and players and sponsors and basically everyone else that the Hoosier State Instigators were a legitimate team. They're here to compete for real. And I think the way we finished off the season, maybe not, how the playoffs ended, but like the run that we had going towards the end of the season shows that we are a very legitimate team that is looking to take the next step and kind of really set ourselves in the ABA and within the community in Indiana. But we had amazing players on the team for our inaugural season. As much as we would all love to have them back, it's sports, so the likelihood is very slim that everybody's going to be back. Um, but that is just the reality behind it. So to have some guys show out for the tryouts would be nice to have that extra pool of talent to add to our list. And again, we like to take our fans considerations into our roster and our management system. So we'll definitely have some fan input as far as our roster for next year as well. Once we go over and review the tryouts. But yeah, so we'll have that. We also plan on having a couple more tryouts throughout the off season, but we are looking to jump right into things. We're just in the first month in the off season, like officially, with the league ending on April 20th. So not even a full month after the league end date for the first season, we're jumping into our first tryout for the next season. Um, but you got to stay on top of these things. We're trying to again build that player pool for next year. We would love to expand that to the point where we're almost at the point like we would love to have it where we just have too much talent. As great as an issue that would be, but we definitely would like to see some of our guys back from last year as well. There's definitely a great core that I think built together for that inaugural season for the Instigators. The other side with that for the first season, going into the off season, we made the announcement that we are also looking for a new head coach. Corey Curran, aka Frosty, filled in for us for the better half of the season. And he wound up announcing here on one of the podcasts during the off season that he will not be returning as the head coach. Um, you know, and we're looking for somebody else to be the next head coach in Hoosier State Instigators history. And whoever that is going to have to try to break his records from the inaugural season. He has the most wins, playoff wins, best record, longest streak, so on and so forth for the coaching records. But we have that as well. So if you or somebody you know is interested in coaching, so maybe if you don't know anybody that wants to be a player, but if you know somebody that is interested in coaching, please let them know about this opportunity. And they can send their information to us at that link down there. That's right over on our website as well. If you go to www.apexofsports.com/contact -8. If you do that directly, it'll get you right to that. You can also go over on the website if you just go on the Apex of Sports. www.apexofsports.com. You can go over on there. And we've also got some posts right on that main page. And you can see the open tryout as well. You can click right on that. That'll get you over to the page to register for the tryout. And then the second thing that we've got is the head coach wanted picture. And you can click on that, and that'll get you over to that as well. You can also go over to the tabs at the top where it says get involved. I think over where it says prospective players, if you click that, you can fill that out for players as well as coaches. And there's a little thing there you can click to differentiate. But I can actually, now that I think about it, I'll share my screen just to show everybody here exactly what I am talking about. So let me do that real quick. Yeah, so right over on our main web page here, we've got the tryouts, and then this will be the head coach page. Again, our website is apexofsports.com. You can click right on that, and it'll get you a pop-up to lead to that page. And you can also see here the Get Involved, the Prospective Players tab as well up there. And that will get you to that form to fill out for prospective players and coaches. But for the um, tryout, you'll click on this and it'll do a pop up again. It's gonna. Oh, actually, I can do that. Share this tab. So this will be the pop-up, and it's just another page on our website, open tryouts for the 2024-2025 season. And again, that $60 fee online gives you some more information. And again, the only thing I forgot to mention is that you have to be 18 or older to attend one of our tryouts. That's the only rule. just because it is technically professional basketball. So you have to be 18 plus for the tryouts. But hopefully that showed you over on that website, on our website, where you can go to sign up for those. And again, if you know anybody or if you yourself are interested in that, you can go ahead and sign up or send us over your information, and we'll definitely reach out to you if you're interested in coaching. We'd like to set up some interviews, kind of narrow down our candidates and see exactly what we're looking for, see who fits our play style the best. That was the other part of that fan, the fan voter survey was what type of coach you are looking for our next season. Do you want an up-tempo coach, somebody that's pushing the ball all the time, somebody more laid back that sets up plays, or if you kind of want a mix of both, somebody that's in between. It kind of asks what kind of play styles, ideas that you have for the coach as well. But yeah, so we're looking into that as well. But I think once we get our core group of guys, that come back from the first season, and we can get ourselves a head coach, um, I think we're going to be looking at a much better situation than we were entering the first season, at least. Um, we'll have a little bit more time for the team to kind of gel together, practice together, and get to know each other, their weaknesses and their strengths, and kind of play to that in their advantage if possible. Um, but again, we're trying to get ahead of the ball this time, going into the second season. Um, But the other thing, exciting news, this was only something that we had discussed over on the Patreon. Again, we're trying to provide people on our Patreon some little bit of an extra service, compared to the traditional fans that just kind of join. If you're catching this over on YouTube, again, go over on our Patreon and subscribe. You'll have an opportunity to get some inside info and kind of learn a little bit more about the team, have some insider access. And again, if you want the voting access, you'll have to join on the fan voter or higher level. I believe that's a $10 level currently, and you'll be able to have an input on all our off-season votes. But the other thing that we just announced over there is we're talking with some facilities, so there should be a facility update coming soon, hopefully. Ideally it would be later this month, but again, that's ideally. Um, so wait and see exactly what that winds up being. But we are talking to multiple venues. Um, but that's pretty much all I'll say here on the podcast. I'll give a little bit of a little bit more. Obviously, we're looking at the Clinton CRC is one of the venues that was our home venue for our inaugural season. So obviously that's one we're going to explore again for the next season. But we also have about a handful of other venues that we are exploring options with. And if you want to have insider access and get to see what those locations are, again, get on our Patreon. Um, and let me see. I think can just do that. I'll just create a thing here so that you can join. Check out the Patreon. Put the link down there. But there's a couple of venues. Again, we're the Hoosier State Instigators, so obviously it's going to have to be within the state of Indiana. Um, and that's about all I'll say here. Again, join the Patreon and you'll get a little bit more information. But we're hoping to upgrade our streaming for next season. Um, and the facility I think is going to play a key part in that as well. Yeah, let me make this real quick. Um, but yeah, so again, if you're not already a member on the Patreon, join that Patreon. You'll get the information regardless of which level you are. But if you happen to go up to the fan voter, you'll be able to have a say in our off-season votes. And let me see, that should, that doesn't scroll. Let me see. There you go. I fixed it, I think. Yeah. So join to get insider access. That is the link www.patreon.com/Apex Athletic Collective. But yeah, so if you want to learn more about that facility update, it is over there. Um, a couple of things we listed exactly what the kind of requirements that we're looking for, as well as the other locations in addition to Clinton that we are looking at over on that page. Um, but we'll continue to try to provide a little bit more of some of that insider access on our Patreon. Again, I think that's the route that we're leaning towards going with the upcoming tryouts as well. I think we're only going to wind up streaming those over on the Patreon. At least that's what we're leaning towards at this moment. So if you really want to get that insider knowledge in the off season, definitely go over there and keep up with us. And we'll have this podcast here every week live Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern. And then we'll upload it on YouTube again as we traditionally have, about a day or so after. But to get the up to date live knowledge, you have to join the Patreon to keep up with us for the off season. But again, hopefully we'll have that announcement later this month. I think that's what we're hoping for at least. Um, but once that's official, we will have a public announcement as well. I think we're working on a couple of things at the moment. We're still trying to get everything squared away, so we don't want to make any kind of preemptive announcements at the moment. But we're definitely working on it, and we have that tryout coming up in a couple of weeks. So that also will be one of our main priorities at this time. So that is going to be, a lot going on. Now that I think about it, this month for the AAC and the Hoosier State Instigators, even though we just got into the off season. Um, but I think that does it for all the news that I had as far as the AAC for this week. Again, if you aren't already, join us on the Patreon, and we'll have some more stuff for you to follow throughout the off season as well as votes. But outside of the AAC, I just wanted to give a shout out to Quantez Stiggers. He was, a lot of us, came from the FCF as fans, and he was the first player ever to be drafted from the FCF into the NFL. He also played in Canada this past season, which is the team that they have him listed from, the Toronto Argonauts. But he got drafted in the fifth round, and that's with no college experience. He had um, quite the path. If you haven't already seen his journey to the NFL, I recommend looking that up and taking the time to see all that he has overcome. Very, very, kind of a, a great story of personal triumph over uh, some not so good situations. uh, and he was able to kind of turn everything around by joining the FCF in season V 2.0. And that led to him having the opportunity in Canada, and then ultimately getting drafted in the fifth round by the New York Jets. But he'll have a chance to play on Sundays this year with the New York Jets. And the Jets are a pretty good team, especially on defense. And he'll have hopefully Sauce Gardner to kind of mentor him into the role of an NFL cornerback. But I just wanted to shout him out and say congratulations to him as well for being the first FCF player drafted in history. Definitely well deserved, and I look forward to seeing what he can do on Sundays. I think he's going to be a guy that maybe not right off the bat has as a big playing role, but I think he can definitely kind of work his way into some packages, maybe like a nickel or a dime package for the New York Jets throughout the season. But obviously, their number one corner is kind of pretty much locked down. Their number one corner is obviously going to be Sauce Gardner, so he might have to fill into a 2, 3, or 4 corner if he can develop into that. Um, but yeah, other than that, we've got NBA playoffs going on. Uh, some Indiana news: the Pacers. I'm from Florida, so the Miami Heat. They were eliminated, but the Indiana news. The Pacers were able to knock down the Bucks, and they progressed to the second round of the playoffs. And I believe I also saw that the WNBA preseason is on tonight. The Indiana Fever um, are playing their first game of the preseason. Yeah, I think that's ongoing actually currently. And Caitlin Clark will have the opportunity to take the court for Indiana for the first time tonight. So a little bit of cool news for Indiana this week. The Hoosier State in which we play in. But I think that pretty much wraps up everything for tonight's show. Again, be sure to follow us over on or join as a subscriber for the Patreon to keep up with us throughout the off season, get some insider knowledge as well as keep up with the Hoosier State Instigators for all of your off season updates. And if you happen to know anybody or if you yourself are interested in being a player or a coach for the Hoosier State Instigators, again, we have that posted on our socials with the direct links, or you can go on our website, www.apexofsports.com. And there's links on the website directly that will get you to the sign up for the tryouts. Again, that is a $60 fee if you sign up ahead of time online. At the door, it's going to be $75. So go ahead and save yourselves the $15 by signing up ahead of time. And again, that is May 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern, Crossroads Community Church, and that's in association with the IBL as well. And if you're interested in being a coach, fill out that prospective form, and we'll be in touch with you, hopefully to set up an interview, learn more about you, and see if we can possibly have ourselves the next head coach in Hoosier State Instigators history. But again, that is going to be it for tonight on episode 42 of Instigate Success. As always, thank you for joining me here on the podcast. Until next time, be great and instigate.